Hey, so it's been quite a while since I last uploaded any content onto the channel. I felt like talking about Premium, especially because I've got some holidays off, so I have a bit of time to record a video, and there's not really going to be that much consequence, I think, this late in, because obviously had I done this early in the month, which is by the time I was thinking about doing this video, then they probably would just drop this list at any given moment, but obviously they've taken a lot longer, and because we've got Christmas Eve tomorrow at the time of recording, as well as Christmas Day and Boxing Day, I just don't think they're going to announce a restriction list in the next 3 days. So I think I've got some space to kind of talk about this without it just becoming irrelevant within seconds. So obviously, because the restriction list for Premium can be dropped at any time, technically speaking, right? They haven't announced a date or anything on when it comes out. So that's where we're at right now. And I just thought I'd just share some of my thoughts, looking at various cards and things, which I'll go through, and just what I feel would or should not get restricted as well. Beatrice is a good example of something I'm going to argue I don't think should get restricted, but I've had people tell me they think it should get restricted. So we'll go through that. Obviously, we don't have much in terms of tournament result data because in Japan there's barely anything. So I think there's been a push, at least in the English game, to get restriction in, but obviously Japan's overruling. I think they've also probably overruled them when it comes to events because we've had less premium events this year, which has gone pretty bad, and it's putting people off from playing the game. I know some people that are just not that into Vanguard anymore. Some people have gone over to Shadowverse as well. These are people who actually played the game for a lot longer. They've been in Vanguard for a hell of a long time, but they're kind of like, okay, you know what, I'm going to start playing Shadowverse, or I'm just going to play Pokemon, or I'm just going to start taking a dip, I'm on a hiatus, whatever. Like, I've had a lot of that kind of going around, and even in my case, I mean, I still enjoy the game, but I mean, there's some problems that's kind of make it hard for me to enjoy traveling for events and things right now compared to before. Like, I might actually book to go to Japan in the next year, but you know what? That's without me even taking into account Worlds and things. So I'll probably just go there around the time of Worlds. And if people are there, then I'll just hang out and catch up with people. If they're not, then okay. But I know some of my friends will be there anyway. I don't think quite as many yet. But I mean, my friends Hao and Kalen and Harpreet, they've qualified. John Shi as well. They've all qualified for Worlds. So that's a reason to go there. So we don't have too much to go off of. So I think the fun factor, or just like people's kind of experiences, I think are going to be taken into account as I'm going through this. So let's go through each of these different cards and just discuss. So Ghosty leader Beatrice. Some people think this card should be restricted. I get the reason. They say it's because of the multi-tags. It's very powerful. Obviously because of bad bounty / V Night Rose turns or Night Storm and all this stuff, you can do more attacks. Obviously, with Jessie the Ghosty, I think it was Jessie the Ghosty, you could do some sort of counter charge thing and just do more attack extensions and things. So it's very strong. But obviously, what makes it very strong as well is the crest. The crest is a pretty big deal. And I personally am of the belief that we should just get rid of the crest altogether. Now, I don't know if they would ever do that. As you saw in the last restriction list, we had selective restrictions on crests, where they basically restrict them with the G bosses, but not the V bosses generally. So that in itself isn't really an indicator that they'll just get rid of crests completely. It was kind of a bit of a funny roundabout way to the restriction, obviously. But the thing is with crests is that you have to ride a specific grade 1 to get the crest, and I don't like that. And I think every deck needs to be able to push for game. Beatrice is consistent, and you will be able to filter it and call it out in every game, virtually every game, unless it gets, goes to places where it shouldn't be. But generally speaking, the crest, you don't get the crest ride, that's it. You're not doing your aggro combo. If you don't get to play Beatrice in the deck and you're attacking with base numbers, the game's going to be a lot harder. And games can go over time as well. So I don't think that's a good reason to ban Beatrice. I think the crest should be banned. If anything, I think Granblue's fine without the crest. It's absolutely fine. The only thing, like Cannoneer got choice restricts with Beatrice as well. So the deck is very defensive, but it's not like insane anymore, right? So I think I don't think Granblue should be touched except for the crest. The crest is the only thing I would touch personally. That's my thoughts on just normal Night Rose Granblue. But going on to some of the other decks. So Knights of Heavenly Royal Reedy. So this card, I think it should have been banned a long time ago. When they first revealed this card, I've always said this card was a mistake. Obviously, this goes back to Genesis with Taro. I've always had this view ever since they revealed Kazande in V Series, which is the Grade 2 Genesis card that has Soul Blast 2. I never agree with the idea of having a skill that says Soul Blast as an act without being once per turn, or having some sort of turn restriction. I think the problem is with that is that obviously if you have a deck that can exploit the Soul Engine that's built around that kind of thing, like Gelja, which obviously got limited eventually, which I always thought Gelja would one day get limited. I always thought that was the real kind of thing that was kind of creating a lot of loop enablers, and actually it's a fact because preventing deck out, I mean, with Taro you can just technically you can flip with Ordain Owl and just do it instead, but that's not why I got restricted, but that was actually where you could do an infinite play as well. But generally speaking, yeah, you shouldn't have these sort of spammable Soul Blast skills, and obviously indeed they've been quite casual with putting in Soul Blast cost because they're treating Soul Blast like an actual cost, which is a bit different in Premium in some decks. So obviously giving all your triggers +5 is pretty strong ability, especially if you can keep doing it repeatedly. And we've seen it being used in Ultima in Gold Paladins. We've seen it being used in Fenrir as well. So I think this card's got to go as well. Or you just errata it once per turn, I guess. You could do that as well. Then it'd be quite balanced. So this is one of the cards that should be addressed as well. These sort of cards just shouldn't be a thing either. And obviously I'm basing this... I mean, there are some other cards I think should technically go in general, which I know some of them have already gone because apparently I can see the future and I can guess which card's going to get restricted one day the moment the card gets revealed, apparently. But yeah, some of them are gone, i.e. like Crystal Pop Eva, whatever her name is. I do think, like off the top of my head, Assault is a card that probably should be restricted. We'll see if that ever happens. Assault is this grade 1 from set 3, I think it was, where if you basically discard it or call it, you can stand a unit back up. I think that's one of those cards as well. I remember something else as well, which I'm forgetting about, that did get restricted, but I'll come back to that later if I remember. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this card. But then going on to something similar. So, Witch of Orange is Valencia. So this card is a scapegoat. I don't think this should be hit at all. Actually, this card was always designed to have restrictions like bind this card and things like that. You just can't just keep on going on a banning spree just because of the overtrigger existing. And I know people are going to be like, oh, well, they're never going to ban the overtrigger. Well, is Bishop going to ban 12 cards plus, counting? Like every time they release something that's creative or cool or anything like that, then we've got to ban it. And by the way, we have Claymore Harry as well in this game. So Claymore Harry can do the same thing, can put overtriggers back. They've already banned Dreaming Dragon, so we can't talk about Dreaming Dragon. I mean, are we just going to keep having this? Are we going to have suddenly now, I don't know, Gleipnir. So Gleipnir adding overtriggers to hand, a Strifeful Heavens. Okay, cool. Draw card, return the overtrigger back into deck. I mean, you can do all these sorts of things if you want to abuse the overtrigger. So it just feels really kind of lame, this restriction, if you were to go after Orange Witch Valencia. I think it's about time Bushiroad just stop being around the bush, no pun intended, and actually just ban the overtrigger, because that card in Premium especially is causing a lot of problems. And obviously, as I said earlier, a lot of people have been put off from playing the game. There's various reasons, obviously, but I do think if you get rid of overtrigger from Premium, it would actually encourage people to start flying to events and things and increase participation, which I think would be great as well, instead of trying to shake the fleas off, as they say. So I do think that would be the right fix, but I'll get into a bit more kind of reasons. So I think this might be a reason why possibly that the restriction has been delayed, why we didn't get it back then, and why it is we're still over 20 days without any announcements. I have a theory that maybe they are trying to make the case as to why they should ban it in Premium, because obviously Premium is a bit different and Japan doesn't seem to care that much about Premium apparently. So obviously you can make the case that, well, Overtrigger came into the game 10 years in and a lot of legacy cards weren't designed around the Overtrigger, so they can sort of, massage some egos, I should say, that don't want to admit that the Overtrigger in general was a mistake. And then what you can do is you point to a bunch of decks that have abused the Overtrigger. So we'll get to a few of those in a sec, but obviously there's some other ones which I'm not going to talk about in this video, which aren't on the kind of restriction list kind of side thing. So for example, Regalia. I play Regalia. You check the Overtrigger in that deck, it's pretty bonkers, right? You attack 3 times with a Regalia card. Even a Vanguard like Minerva, which is on my screen in the background there, but that's obviously insane to use the Overtrigger with. Obviously, Gilderai, or what's the other card called? The Restand in Dark Regulars, Bread and Mouse. I've heard people say it's pretty good in that as well. And you can just find it in a bunch of decks. Great Nature, Crayon Tiger combos, pretty insane as well with that. So there's just a number of decks just off the top of my head that the overtrigger will be great in. Obviously Ultima also got restricted because of the overtrigger. Now imagine if you got rid of the overtrigger, Ultima just gets played again. Now they can start promoting Ultima. Gize Sanctuary decks will start playing Ultima, which feels really weird at the moment with the Ultima in it. So it'll kind of clean that kind of, mess, that jarring mess that we have at the moment as well. So those are just kind of like the kind of off-video examples that just come to my head on how it is. And Overtrigger kind of reminds me of Axel 2, because Axel 2 is another mechanic that came into the game, which led to a lot of restrictions as well. So I kind of see the Overtriggers in that kind of way as well. So yeah, this is kind of one of those things where instead of just going after Orange Witch or Amaruda, because I've seen people say, no, just ban the Sentinel Restrict. No, you can't ban the Sentinel Restrict. What, we're just going to not have Sentinel Restricts in the game now because of the Overtrigger? I mean, that's just crazy. So yeah, I think this is kind of correct as well. I mean, you could just ban Red OT, I guess, if you really want to go there. Like Drag Vader was banned in some decks for D format. But yeah, I think it's about time they address it in the core. And to kind of go into other examples, there's this Magnolia deck with Scare Dick. So Magnolia can give back row to this card, and then this card here gains a crit as well. And what you do is you play like the Red OT or something, and you just attack multiple times, and you usually just kill your opponent on turn 3. While you're using Skeleton Navigator, or whatever it's called, to mill your deck. So every time what you do is you just rest it and mill 5 from your deck. And what you do is you go Bartholomew on your first stride while having the Magnolia name. And Bartholomew, obviously, you know how that works. It makes your opponent drop 3 cards to guard every swing. And obviously, if they drop a perfect guard, because against an overtrigger, that means you have to drop 4 cards. And we all know how annoying that gets. So it's an OTK. You can basically 0-6 them as well with it. It's pretty easy, generally speaking. So that's another case against the Overtrigger as to why the Overtrigger should go as well. So I'm thinking they could maybe use this deck as a way to kind of extend the argument as well. So I just feel like with Premium, there's a way of trying to make it so that you can sort of try and meet in the middle with Bushiroad Japan and be like, look, Premium format, these decks, this wasn't designed for it. But you know what, we'll just keep it in D, right? If they kind of, depending on how they make the argument, maybe they can get it. If we've got some real fighters in Bushiroad English, which I hope we do, that might explain why there's been delays. But again, I'm speculating here. Now, going into a bit more. So obviously Overtrigger needs to be banned. Spangled. So if the Overtrigger gets banned, then we can finally free Spangled. And I don't even know why this is an argument for it getting banned in the first place, to be fair, but I mean, just say, look, Spangled drawing cards is silly. We just don't want that ability to exist. If they said that, then okay, then I can't put this on the list. But of cards to be restricted, the only card to be unrestricted at the moment. But yeah, this should get unrestricted if the Overtrigger goes, obviously. And obviously it means then you're going to see Ket Sanctuary also playing Ultima as well on the side note. So there's just a few kind of changes that would happen. On to the next deck, which just never gets talked about, Gize. So before all these OTKs like Fenrir and Shoutmill started running around, we had Gize, which was starting to see a resurgence. Now, I predicted with the V-Guardian promos that Gize would actually become a very popular deck again. And I kind of called it as well. So Gize is now a really good deck. And it's obviously because of the V promo. Because the V-Guardians, they give you so much shield. I think you can also give your Vanguard 5k power as well, I'm pretty sure. So you can basically have a 35k base Gize. You can basically just keep guarding very easily beyond the Gize turn. And it's also very easy to guard early. It's easy to activate your G-Guardians, which means you can do damage manipulation as well. You can get to your 5 Zerg Dragons in bind zone. And it just does so much to V-Guardians. Plus, it's a 5k base. You can swing under your opponent's grade 1, so you can damage knife if you want to. So there's kind of a lot of implications here. And obviously with how Angels work, you can basically take cards from damage to your hand. I think Gize is very likely to get hit. And I think the way Gize will get hit is they will just go after the V-Guardian promos. But there's a whole kind of broader discussion around it. So Hellhard 8, obviously, as an example. Celtus Winner as well. They kind of... so let me just see if I've got these cards on my screen somewhere, just for reference. Unless I close it down. No, I have closed it down, I think. No, I haven't. Okay, so Celtus Winner. And also Hellhard 8. So these 2 cards as well rely on V-Guardians to turbo up the GBA. Just remember, Celtus Winner and Hellhard 8, they've existed for a long time because of GBAs. So why are they suddenly now appearing in tournaments? It's simple. Just like with Gizeh, V Guardians, that's the answer. And obviously there's an argument that because of time rules and things, maybe games getting too defensive. And there's actually another deck I'll go into soon as well, which also has the same issue as well when it comes to abusing defense. And I think what they did was when they threw these V Guardians in the game, traditionally, like back in G era, when they added a new mechanic to the game, usually they kind of thought a bit about how it's going to affect a deck. But in this case, I feel these primers just kind of did a blanket kind of drop without thinking too much about how it's going to impact how strong a deck can get, right? Or how it's going to be abused. And I think that's what we had. We've kind of had a bit of a Zazen Tempest Sphere kind of problem here, but obviously not to the same scale. But it is a bit like a Tempest Zazen thing where there's just like ramifications, and obviously we've ended up with this kind of situation. Also, kind of going back to Angel Gizeh for a minute as well. Another issue we've had, not just because of the V Guardians, but what also helped to kind of push it as well, is just the fact that we've had in Angel Feathers, as an example, or well, it's the primary example, we've had double protect History Collection Strides. So that obviously helps you to farm 2 PGs in hand. It's just very hard to kill an Angel Feather player, basically. It's really hard. It's the most defensive deck you can possibly come up with, I feel like. So, and they can also play Broken Heart if they want to gain power as well. So there's just a lot of kind of awkward elements. And obviously, if you ride Gavriel, you can get the GB2 because the History Collection gives you GB2. You can enable your power gains as well during your opponent's turn. So very defensive as well. So very difficult deck for most decks to actually be able to play it into as well. So I think V Guardians, I think they might. There's a decent case to be made that they should get restricted as well, maybe to 1 or something. But yeah, definitely share me your comments on that one in the description. But yeah, obviously I'll put up Hamario as an example. But obviously Glendio's is the other deck I was thinking of. So Glendio's as well. Now, this has got nothing to do with Harpreet winning, but Harpreet winning, I think, kind of... I guess it just adds more weight to a thought I already had, because I've actually played against Glendio's anyway before, so I kind of know how roughly how the deck kind of works. But Glendio's, its win con is kind of just decking your opponent out. It's not really world ending because it's so easy to play around world end. So obviously with Glendio's is what they're doing is just they're doing the sort of shout thing, but in a slower kind of way, and they just lock your opponent's board. Basically, they just stall the game as much as possible. They used Rubidium to defend. They used V Guardian promos again. V Guardian just come up again to defend, and you just keep on slowing your opponent down basically until your opponent's deck gets smaller and smaller, and then you just go into the stride and then deck them out. Basically, that's basically what you're supposed to do. With Glendio's is just deck your opponent out. I've actually put the wrong Glendio's on the screen. It was meant to be the stride that was supposed to be put up, but okay, fine, whatever. One of the 2 strides even. The one from Fire's Collection, I'm pretty sure it was. So I do think this is another deck which will justify hitting V Guardians down as well, just so that it becomes less defensive. That's kind of the main thing I'd hit. I'm not sure if I'd hit anything else besides the V Guardians, to be honest. I mean, I don't really want to overkill it either, obviously. But then going into the next thing, so we've gone through those. Nehalenia. So obviously, I have to mention this card. This card can be used in the same way as Matoa, which is to deck your opponent out as well. So this should also obviously get restricted. I think it will be banned, just straight up banned as well. And I'm just remembering as well, the other card that I had on top of my head that I was thinking would get banned was Reverence Rush Dragon, by the way, as well. I think also I think Salary could also get banned one day. Diorung is another card I was thinking is probably maybe a card that could get hit. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious which D cards are a bit iffy. I mean, I'm just going from the more Ked Sanctuary kind of side of things, but yeah, there's a bunch of kind of odd cards, toolboxy cards that are very impactful, and especially put into the right deck, or can be used to create these kind of like loop combos and things, or add consistency to them. So I think that's what we're going to get a lot with D, is like, because a lot of D is kind of, a lot of the support is basically toolboxy as well, rather than just supporting a specific deck. Then we've got Shout as well, another card that decks your opponent out. Obviously, you can't exclude this one from the list. Then, oh, this is just a bit of a joke. Elementary Sanctuary, because you've got to make, you've got to make Unibird actually playable, right? No, but joking aside, some of the decks that probably will after this restriction list will probably end up being more popular. I think, obviously, Dimension Police I think would be really good. Although I think Sanctuary is obviously like it's kryptonite, like with some other decks out there as well. And then Eradicators, obviously, this deck hasn't really been getting as much play, but I think Eradicators is one of those decks waiting in the wings. I feel like Eradicators has become the deck where if Eradicate is the main deck people are playing, then that means maybe the game is balanced. I mean, Ty Smith would probably like that comment, actually. Then going into the next thing, Velvet Voice Reindeer, or actually not even just Reindeer, but Mew in general. I think what's her name, Riviera. I think Riviera as well. Apparently even Pacifica, because yeah, I saw I kind of got smashed in the final round after my overtime game in Vienna, which basically just made it impossible for me to get top card at that point. Basically I was on grade 2. I got triple doored, had no heal guards in hand. I got double critted by triple drive Pacifica, and the front row still had double crits anyway. So even if I just needed to get a damage trigger, didn't even get damage trigger, couldn't even heal. Didn't even have a heal guard to give my Vanguard 10k power, so I just got destroyed on grade 2 while going second. So this is kind of why I don't want to really travel much for Vanguard at the moment. It's stuff like this. But then V Night Rose. V Night Rose I think would also be pretty good as well. Still, I think Granblue will always be good as long as they don't just start like all of a sudden going through like a dramatic kind of ban hammering. Then yeah, I think as long as they keep the restrictions pragmatic. I mean, if you just hit the crest only, then yeah, I think Granblue would definitely stay as one of the best. And other than that, yeah, we've got also Steam Maidens, and that's more or less it. So those are my thoughts on the restriction list and what maybe could get restricted, or how they could maybe end up kind of just toning down some of the more, I guess, the more kind of dominant decks at the moment that are being, well, the ones that I think are actually like really good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And just let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will catch you for another one. Bye.